Hello to everyone, this is Vishal and hope all are doing good. So topic of the day, as you can see on my screen, that is the clean architecture, and you can read many theories, many blogs related to the clean architecture. As I have read and checked that whether it actually exists with our MVVM approach. So that is the discussion. Because of our MVVM also be a clean, and MVVM, we can say that there's a lot of new components be there, that is related to your dagger, that is your retrofit, there is your live data. So a lot of stuffs be there. And what is the role of these kind of components in MVVM when we justify with this MVVM to our main clean architecture that introduced by Uncle Bob? So that is the discussion. But before that, we need to understand what is the dirty architecture. Because of, if we make it clean, so first we need to understand what is dirty. So dirty architecture is where we have readability issues means lot of mashups be there in a code, logics be on the wrong place, and if somebody else read that your code, so lot of things be confusing. Just like when we do not use our any MVVM, MVP and MVC approaches, so doing the apps simply, and where is the logic, where is the adapters, and lot of complexities be there. So that's the thing, that's that kind of architecture we can say it are dirty. Readability issues, and in the future maintainability issues, and then also be a testability issues. So that is the theory, and that we can understand. So that is called your the dirty architecture. And the most important thing is that we break your single responsibility principle. So what is a single responsibility principle that also be introduced by Uncle Bob? That's be the other name is Robert C. Martin, and you can see that or search this name anywhere. So the single responsibility principle, that is one of the important rule under the five rules that he talked about. Number one, single responsibility principle under the solid. Solid means we have a five rules. SOLID. So S is for single responsibility principle, O for open close principle, and L for scope substitution principle, and I for interface segregation principle, and the last is your dependency inversion principle. So we do not go with these four rules. We have to first um, discuss about that what is the single responsibility principle, because of that is enough for the clean architecture. He as he described that. So he said that single responsibility principle is a, we have only one reason to change. He said the class should have only one reason to change. That means if you're doing some work, so we have some responsibility, but we have a single responsibility of that work. We can't do the multiple works on that cases. Like a very good explanation, very good examples I have seen many websites. That is the, if you go with the recycler view, and when we working with the crease recycler view and making the custom adapter, on that case we have a on bind view holder. And on bind view holder, when we work with this holder, there is uh, we have a positioning, we give the positioning to items on that cases, because of we put particular holder on particular positioning of that item. Means if you set the text for the item number, if you set the text for the item name, if you set the text with item quantity, item cost, likewise that. And but some many people is doing the wrong thing, that under this on bind view holder they are doing this kind of calculations, this kind of logics, just like here with the calculations with the get item get price with the calculations some, and it added some total and then print that total. But this is very wrong approach. Okay, because of if somebody else read this code, and first we he need to understand whether this logic be going on, and then at last if we go with that, uh, I mean if we get access with this code, and then if we need something replacement with the code, and if you need more code or a more logic, so he can also be applied with this. So that means again it break the rule. So this is very dirty work. So the responsibility of the owned by view holder just to place the item and show that. That is the responsibility, not a responsibility of the logic. So we have to create a separate classes for that, like your repositories. And as we did, or if you see my previous tutorials of MVVM, then I'm using that repository with you. Okay, so that is on bind the data is right. Bind view holder method is not only mapping for an item object to the view, but also performing the price calculation. That is very wrong. It breaks the rule of single responsibility principle. So what we have to do, the adapter should only be responsible for adapting an order object to its view presentation. So only it show the what is the view, okay, not the logic. So multiple responsibility in a class can causes a various problem. First, the calculation logics for the item is now coupled to the adapter. If you need to display a total of an order or some future changes, then first new developer confused where is the logic, and after search if he will get in the need to change the further logic. So that is the dirty architecture. Okay, so what is a clean? So clean is, we have to go for that, and the clean is that clean was introduced, as I told you, by the Robert C. Martin. He said that it's a main goal to suppression of concern by dividing softwares into layers. That is the same definition, you can read it from anywhere. Its a main goal is the separation of concerns by the layers as you see on the screen. So I will discuss these layers also, but first it follow the dependency rules, and dependency rule that I will also be discussed. So the idea is that inner circles are not aware of the outer circles. Means if we have a three layers, like we can say that A, B, C. I'm not giving the name at this time. I'm just saying the A, B, C. So if C is doing something, B can access it. If B do something, A can access it, and A can access C also. But C never access the B and A. So that is called a suppression of concern, and it follow this rule. That means this rule is, dependency rule is, C never get access to B, but B dependent on C, and B can access the C. So that is the scenario. But what is this exactly? We can say that the application code is separated into the layers. These layers define the separation of concerns. The layers follow a strict dependency rules. As we move towards the bottom layer, the code becomes generic. And the whole idea behind the clean architecture is to separate our out code into the different layers so that each layer mind its own business. Like as we making our apps, designer doing their work, tester doing their work, and coder their work. And if you're doing the coding, and if you have a multiple coders doing the same project, so that is they're doing the work on the different folders, or what they're making. Just some are doing the view holder work, some are doing with the view work. So that is the thing. The mainly is the whole idea behind in clean architecture, I'm saying again, is to separation of code into different layers so that each layer mind its own business. Then we merge it. And in the future, if somebody says whether it's the web services doing, whether it's the logic doing, so he can just check that area, particular area of logic, particular area of adapter, particular area of the view. So that's the thing, and it's become very easy to read that. So that means it is a clean, not a dirty. Okay. So now if we implement these things be on our MVVM approaches, so how much it justified, that is the question. Because of, according to me, my MVVM also clean. But here, if you say that our MVVM approaches is doing like this, if you go with the diagram, and here we have activity fragments, we have a view model that is related to the live data, we have a repository model, and we have a retrofit calling and the room calling. So I'm not making at this time three layers. This is the first video and I'm making only two layers. I will discuss the third layer on the next tutorial or the next session. So today I just discuss about that, just half two parts of this separation. So if I separate it from this repository. So if we go with this area, activity and the view model, these two area, that means view and the view model, these two area, I am putting in a presentation. What is a presentation? That is view, what you showing to user and what you take input from the user, and the rest things where we have a logics, where we have a model, where we have a retrofit calling, where we have a local database accessing, these second be on the layer of data, because of these things be under data. So according to Uncle Bob, he said that we have a three kind of layers. Outer layer is your presentation layer, middle layer is your domain layer or interface adapter, and the inner layer is called the data layer. That means if data layer doing something, we just directly interact with that, but data layer can't interact with or can't get access the things from your other layers like a presentation or the domain. So I will discuss this domain layer later because of it's related to the callbacks. Today I'm just discuss about the presentation and data and how much our MVVM be here. So he said that the data layer will include the POSO, means get data from the web services or the local storage, and the business logics be there. So for this we are doing with repositories. Repository works be there. And here we have a models, okay, and these all stuffs be there. And domain layer is, we can say it's I'm not discuss about more later to that, that is the way to interact the business logic. Sometimes we need to callbacks, that callbacks we have to put it in our domain layer, but not today. I'm explaining only presentation and data practically. So the presentation layer, it include normal activities, fragments, your adapters, these kind of things. You can make this MVP approach also with the clean. Okay, so I'm just breaking these two things be here and put it the view and view model here, and repository model API service server and data layers under the data layer. Okay, here we have a retrofit where we have a volley, and you can get access with the daggers also, but I'm making a simple today. Okay, so that is the device. Also be, we can make a device layer, let in not I will discuss it on the next. Okay, so but first you have to think about that, the presentation and the data layer only, just two things. And in presentation layer you have to put UI, view model, adapter, these things, and on the data layer you have to put your repository, model, retrofit, and room, these things be. Okay, so let's start practically what we are doing, and then again we have to understand these all stuffs with as an according to Uncle Bob clean architecture. So I think this will be very easy. Okay, so let's start it on an Android Studio. Let's start in Android Studio. I'm just using this simple MVVM approach as into the layers, so nothing else. It just be, but this video tutorial be going on with the other things, just like your data layers, your sorry, your domain layers, and because of, as I told you, I don't go with the domain layer today. Uh, because of for the callbacks, I'm just choosing two separations with that. Then we go for the domain, and then we go for the other separations. So how we can make it? So that's the start of the day. And I mean practically. So here I'm using just be a button and the text will be there. And the first layer is your the basic layers I'm making because of working with the basic layers. So that's your data layer in which we are doing the business logics and other things. So I'm putting the model here inside that. So this is our model, and other thing I'm using, that's your package, that is your remote if you're working with the retrofit call. If you're working with the database, you can put that. I'm using all at this time then, but work on specific because of this will be I will use in coming sessions. Okay, so just like if you're working with the database, so this is your local database, and here I'm using the repository. So this is your repository. So everything should be finished in a data form. See. Okay, so we have to work with first the model. I'm making a model. So here in this model I'm using a user class, a simple user class. Here I just return the value of the user, and making this constructor. And if you need a getter setters, just work for that getter setters. Okay, so that's me. So you can make your all models be here, but interesting thing is when we create a domain layer, we have to make interfaces for the a particular repository that we get access this particular model on that case. So in the future I will show you just to work with simple user. Okay, and yeah, so that's the thing for the model, and that's the thing for the repository. I'm working only for the model and the repository today. And there and in future we should use the things we like room and the daggers also. Okay, so just see, mm, here I have a Java class, that's your repository. I'm making this user repository and doing all the things related to the logical operations, getting accessing this beyond user repository. So there we have a private uh, mutable live data I'm using, and the mutable live data be in the form of user, and that's your user live data, and say alt enter be here. Okay, and if you want to get accessing the things be here, so I need a public user repository and make a getter for that, generate a getter. It's very simple. Okay, so here make it as a new mutable live data, and also I'm using this private user because of I have to put some name of that user. User is equals to new users. Maybe you get something from your database or from your retrofit call here that I will show you on the next. So here the name is Vishal, and here you use that set values be here. So user mutable live data dot set value be user. So this kind of model we have to bind with that, and then get it in the mutable live data on our view model. So this to be easy. So that's our simple data be ready. So I'm not using again. If anything be we have to access, we need to access, we just go for that. And here the second layer I'm using, that's called here presentation. So under this layer I'm putting the package view model, and I'm using also the next package, that's your view, and I'm also putting the next package, that's your presenter. Okay, so these all packages be here. at this time what we need. But we have a one more package, not at this time if you work with the recycler view in the future. So we need a package adapter. So all works be here. So this is your top layer. I mean showing here because of that's on the alphabetically, but this is on the top and this is on the bottom. These two layers, and the middle layer is your, that's your domain layer. Okay, so just making this main activity you have to put inside your view. That's your refractor. That's nice. And here you have to make a new Java. That's your user view model. So you have to put all the view models be here as we're doing simply. So that's your view model. And I'm not using the view model factory or likewise, I'm just making a simple view model. Okay, but in our future I will show you all, as if you need that you just watch my previous tutorials for that. So here I have I have to access that. So in a view model I'm just making a public because I need to get accessing our mutable u data. So mutable live data is your user and that's your mutable live data. So here, and also I want to be the repository calling be here because of I need to communicate with our repository. So that's our user repository, and user repository be here, and user repository is equals to new user repository, and user repository dot get mutable live data be here, and I need to put this be on my mutable live data. Okay, so that's we need to call. And if you want to be on the click versions, so you can make a public void call data. Because of I just showing what is the presenter doing here, so just copy paste it and call it. So the things we here, everything should be, and yeah, perfectly. So now I have to call this on the main activity, and uh, yeah, so for that what to do here, you can make your private user model, user view model, because of our view interact with our view model always. So that is your user view model, user view model. And here you can set your data bindings also, but I'm using just on the first video I'm just using very basic things for you. So this is your user view model, and user view model dot mutable live data dot observe this comma new observer, and at this time I'm just showing the log tree. Then I will describe you with the presenter also. First check this it's working or not. So that's your user name, and here you can say that this is your user dot get name by our mutable get accessing view model, because of our particular activity works or particular view we works with our user view model, and that user view model that works with our particular user repository. So everything should be on a form. And as I told you, there is a single responsibility if we work with the adapter. So do not go with the logics on the adapter, always work the logics with your repositories. Okay, and I will describe you how to callbacks work. So just run that and see what happened with this. So it's interesting, just your MVVM be as in a layer forms, nothing else. But little bit complexity arise when we work with the callbacks and the other layers. So Gradle running, let's see what happened. Yeah, it installing. Yeah, so you can say the username is Vishal here. So we get the name that. But how it works with the presenter? So I need this presenter be here as We have a presenter. I'm using the new Java class and using that interface, that is your user presenter, and inside this interface I'm making a void on click method, so that we have to implement. But how we call it, as we need a data binding be here, just to call this presenter, and in the future I will describe you how the binding work with the your include layout also. So I'm just make it a small, we can say a small app on that. So I think binding is very easy, and everything should be in easy manner. We can work in our apps and perfectly. It's a working. Okay, that be perfect. And now I'm just choosing our layout. Here what we do, we just using the data. If you want to use the data class name, you can work, but I'm not using this. I'm just giving the user uh, variable name. That variable name I'm using presenter, and this is your user presenter. That's easy. So that's the work with view. So presenter, always you work with your presentation layer. Okay, and here I want to be click. So what to do? So that's your on click, and on click we have a method like at this is your view, and you need to be click on that. So that's your presenter dot versa click name on click. So this is your on click, easy. And now uh, check that presenter be here on your main activity. So once rebuild it, so we know that all the click presenters, all kind of events we have on a separate on one presentation layer on in one folder, and that's the presentation view models be there. So anybody can get access in the future. So that's our work be, yeah, that's good. And here we have a views, here we have a view model, and if you go with your binding technique, so you can see that easily. If you go with your retrofits, so he can check that retrofits easily on your remote methods. So that's the thing. Okay, now we'll check it if I am using your binding. So this is your private activity. Okay, let's see, maybe it's on a build issue. One more time check, rebuild it. Sometimes not making the binding name or binding class name. And one more thing, this these tools always we have to put on your main layout. It's good working, as I told many times. Here we have just simple layouts. Okay, okay, uh, okay. So I have changed the things, so just rebuild it. And here you can put your view model also, but I'm not using today. I will use the view model factory in the future. So it's very interesting to work with the MVVM approaches, and it makes the apps very simple. Okay, so let's see it's showing me or not. Activity, yeah, you can see that this is activity main binding here. And what to do for that activity main binding? Dot that is equals to data binding util dot set content view, this comma, you have to make your layout. Yeah, somebody asked me that how we can work with the binding techniques on the table layout. So I will make that tutorial also soon, later to the include features also. So include binding be there. Okay. So let's see, this is your activity main binding dot your set presenter new user presenter be here, and on click what to do, you just call these things be that's your okay that's your user view model dot call data. Okay, and here you can call that function. And one more thing, here I'm just giving the name to my text view, that is the id uh, name well. Okay, so there activity main binding dot name well dot set text be here, and when you call this call data, I need to be a user view model dot the table live data dot observe this comma new observer, and you can show that values be inside, and here you can make this main activity dot this, and you can say that user dot get name. Okay, and this thing you can show at a very first time also. So it depends on, I'm just making both the things on a create method or here, so it depends on you where you want that. Okay, so run that. I'm just showing whether the present how can work with that, and how it show in a layer. So the simply method is you just put that inside your presentation. So next tutorial I will describe you what is the domain layer and how our callbacks be work with that domain layer if you need it. And some wants me to use your connectivity, your shared data. So these kind of things also you can create a separate layer. So that I will describe you. So you can see that's the Vishal. Yeah, it's also be a Vishal because of it's the same name be here. So if you want to check that again, you can make a log.d here, and I'm just giving the other tag name click. So name click, this is your user dot get name. So the presenter and the model, sorry, user view model, that's beyond presentation. So name click is Vishal. So I'm just check it, name click. Okay, so 2 times I click it and it show me the name click Vishal. On the first time it show me the Vishal. So that's the thing, and that's very simple scene here. And in the future I will make here one more layer, that's we call here new package, that's your domain, and we shall work on that, and then we go for the other things just like connectivities and how we can achieve that.